Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. Today is the last episode as I pull together the series, The System is Failing Our Children. In a way, it can't be the end because there is so much more to say. But I've decided to wrap it up and finish with nuggets. Things that have really jumped out at me over this series and present them to you. There were times when I was stunned into silence as problems were exposed beyond what I thought I would hear. I felt anger rise, but also hope that all is not lost. There is always hope, and there are many able people to help turn this failure around. We heard from folks such as Elwyn Poole, Marty Gibson, Helen Houghton, Cheryl Ansley and Peter Thomas, and in between my reflections, somehow I plan to get these podcasts gathered together as a resource. I need to speak to my editor about how to do that. We looked at what did we mean by the system is failing our children. And then we went about, well, what can we do about it? There is so much more to be said. We haven't touched on gender issues yet and critical theory, especially critical race theory. Although these are important, I see these as being one ripple out from the failure of the 3 R's. We will get to these in further podcasts. There are many nuggets to mention, and I group them under 5 basic headings. You will have noticed other nuggets which have missed my list, but eventually I had to stop as I could have listed more. I encourage you to re-listen to this series regularly. There is much to be reminded of and reinvigorated to defend and fight on behalf of our children. Before I launch into the nuggets, if you need help for someone to help you sort through your thoughts and make plans, please contact me via my website, cominghomeinfo.com. Talk to me about booking a consultation or a homeschool counselling appointment. Lastly, I recommend to you a monologue by the inspirational Neil Oliver. In a call to courage, he asks, what kind of society are we living in? I will put the link in the description box. Key nuggets. Number 1, regarding the high functionally illiterate and innumerate in our schools. The question was asked, do we only want young adults to function? That's not good enough. Surely the goal throughout school years is to offer children an education that produces their optimal outcome, not just functional. The crisis is happening well before children get to secondary school. The designers of our education are presiding over a system that is failing, and they are gaslighting us and shouldn't be allowed to get away with it. Look for the implementers of the curriculum and not the teachers teaching it. This will tell you what you need to know about the motivation and worldview of these people behind the education. 1 in 5 adults are sufficiently illiterate that they can't play a meaningful role in society. Despite a 32% increase in real rise per pupil spending in New Zealand since 2001, students have gone from world-leading to decidedly average in reading, maths and science. Students perform worse in these 3 subjects than the previous generation did just 18 years ago, and far fewer perform at the highest level and far more at basic proficiency. 55% don't pass the expected level of education of the OECD. And it's the tip of the iceberg because you could pass the test and yet still be functionally illiterate. For instance, you may be able to read, but unable to comprehend. And if you can't comprehend, you can't form a cogent argument against something. This wasn't seen as being accidental, but with a government probably quite happy to have people unable to analyse what they're being told. Children are being held back from extension classes because of equity. The argument being, can some have more than others? Socialists don't love the poor, they hate the rich. A quote from Solzhenitsyn. Open plan class was implemented in about 2010 due to a TED talk seen as a good idea, but there has been no testing on efficacy ever since. And what is the solution to open plan schools? Move the children away from open plan schools. And the system is failing boys. The system sends 50% more girls to university than our boys. Nugget number 2. The purpose of education and aspirations for students. A purpose could be said it is to enhance one's humanity, which is done by a few ideas. History is more important than current events. Students need to know about ancient civilizations, to have read the great books, to know the Bible and know about other major religions as well. They need to meet great people in different fields, and I mean in front of the classroom, actually being with these people, to bring motivation and models to aspire to. And when you have a great person come and speak to the children, theory becomes reality. Also in the purpose of education regarding environmentalism is a twist on it and make it positive environmentalism. Don't push adult world problems down onto the children. You are laying the groundwork for exceeding cynicism, because in a few years' time, when the children get through this bracket of years which are insisting on a way of doing environmentalism because of climate change, and it's going to turn out that it isn't what they are being taught, that is classic groundwork for cynicism. Instead, talk about environmentalism from the benefits of cleaning rivers and the beautiful benefits of planting kauri and other plants. It's worth doing because it's God's earth for us to look after, not because we're afraid of what might happen if we don't. I was thinking along this line that for me, I've been doing this so-called environmentalism for decades, before some of these scaremongering activists were still in nappies or just twinkles in their mother's eyes. But for me, it was always done with the satisfaction of seeing God's earth cared for and the benefits when it was, and not from fear. There's a big difference in that. And to be good at academic work is important because it provides a future for the children. It will bring a good income to provide for themselves and ultimately a family. Nugget number 3. Examples of detail in traumatic school life. High expectations need to be set on academic achievement, but also behavioural expectations. Technology in the classroom is affecting your children's ability to focus and learn. Social use of technology, for example, young children using a parent's phone, and regarding their personal student phones, we need to look at banning these from schools. Just a side note here, I'm not referring to any phones which are needed for medical necessities for some students. Behaviour is a huge issue in our schools, resulting in high levels of anxiety, social issues, coming from unhealthy home environments and the behaviour of other students in the classroom. Teachers are unable to remove students who are being disruptive, and it could be said justifiably that many times our classrooms are not safe spaces for your children. There is full-on physical abuse to teachers and other students happening regularly in many schools, including lockdowns in schools where a violent student is locked out of a classroom because it's all the teachers can do, but is still causing trauma. The socio-economic area doesn't seem to matter. Sure, high decile schools do have more, but it's everywhere. In the private schools, though, not so much. Nugget number 4. Practical ideas to improve school and homeschool situations. Read them challenging books. Exercise. Pretty basic stuff, really. Get the ability of critical thinking started as soon as possible. Think about what you buy in terms of time. Time away from your family. So things like buying a bigger and better house, buying a new car, buying a boat, a holiday home, whatever it is that you are wanting to buy to improve your family situation. Start thinking of it in terms of time. Your children want you, not what you can buy them. Always insist, gently, on doing the best work that they can. For instance, if you got something in a test wrong, how could you get that right next time? Or understand what was wrong? It's not necessarily good enough just to pass a test, but what was it that you could do for the next time? How can you learn from this? There are many situations in life where just simply passing a test or being good enough is not acceptable. Your child might as well learn this right from school. Staying in the system, that is the state school system. The education of your child is your responsibility. You have to get involved as a parent. Ultimately, the parent cannot blame the school. If you can afford it and your child is struggling or you're not happy, then choose a private school or look at paying for tutoring while you stay inside a state school. If you are homeschooling, don't assume your child is too young for something. Let them have access to books that you would have considered well above them, to puzzles and games that you would have thought were for older children. Just give them access and stand back. And the last nugget I want to share with you today is if you are wanting to buy a curriculum or have one that you can add to what you're already doing, the wonderful news is that there are resources and organisations who have already done this, and there are a range for you to choose from. For instance, if you go back to podcast number 80, the one I did with Alwyn Poole, he will talk to you about what Mount Hobson has available. One of the benefits within that podcast is that it was telling us that you don't actually need to have a homeschool exemption to be able to access the Mount Hobson curriculum and resources. That was a particular good little sub-nugget, if you like. The other organisation within New Zealand that I think you will find super helpful for either buying or supplementing some curriculum is through Homeschooling New Zealand. That's to be found in podcast number 86. Well, there you have it. As I have wrapped up everything within this series, how the system is failing our children, amongst all the drama of it, I really hope you can see genuine rays and bright lights of hope coming through. I hope you have a very good week, and don't forget, I am available to help you if you need me. I'll catch up with you next time. Bye bye now.